JaredTaber to microphone. JaredTaber to microphone.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Two Tapers and a Microphone.
Two Tapers. Wow, what Bubby's always comes into the room.
Two Tapers and a Microphone.
Yeah, he grabs one of the mics and does it. Oh, so funny.
Well, what's great is he's like pretending to do an episode now.
Yes. Oh, I forgot about that. When he said it, he was sitting at the desk, and I walked in and he's going, Two Tapers and a Microphone, and then just get ready to talk about.
Yeah.
And like I was like, what are you doing?
Into the microphone at the desk.
Yeah, so that was really awesome.
So we have a future podcaster.
Yeah,
apparently.
I guess so. It's so funny.
One day he's gonna be like, "Mom, Dad, can you interview me now?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're excited about this one. We're gonna talk about just like this journey that we've been on these past few months since we have been in this transition season with the Lord, with each other. We're going to talk about, share some amazing, miraculous ways that the Lord has provided for us in this season, and just share some personal growth testimonies that we've experienced during this time, and just kind of like almost update you guys on everything and where we're at and the direction that we feel like the Lord is guiding us to. And so let's get in.
Yeah.
So start with, Jared, do you want to share like why? I would say, like, we kind of debated a little bit. We decided that we're going to kind of almost pick up where we left off with the Not Your First Rodeo Part 2, where obviously we left the last church that we were at.
Yeah.
The one that we shared about, the most recent one. And we want to kind of like start from there. And he wants to explain like why he actually stayed for a little bit after the pastor and majority of the congregation left, including myself. Jared stayed behind in the position that he was in, and I had felt like that last Sunday, that was our pastor's last Sunday, I felt like I was good to go and kind of almost like transition with everybody else. Yeah. But you stayed behind for your reasons.
About a month and a half is how long I was there.
That's what I was thinking, about a month and a half.
I think for me, I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Like, here we were, like, it's like we just got started with stuff, I felt like. And so I was like, God, what was that? Like,
Yeah.
Well, we kind of mentioned, like, we've both felt when we had went to interview at that different church, it was like, you're not done there yet. And then a month later, it was like, okay.
It seemed like we were about done.
Yeah,
done. So
I don't know. And maybe just the shock of everything that I don't know, just kind of wrestling. Did this really happen? And that kind of thing. But then it was like, well, I don't have another job. So,
yeah,
we have a house this time. Like, everything's different with this transition than it's ever been. We have a kid. So I'm thinking I can stay here for, I don't know how long. I mean, all the things that went down and all the behind the scenes stuff that we shared in that episode. And I told them, I mean, they knew that I knew, but I was willing to help transition them. And so I said, hey, I've got a house that I've got on the market. I've got to sell that thing. I've got these other things I've got to figure out before I can be out of here. Because I know you don't want me here is kind of how I left it.
Yeah.
And I said, but if you can give me some time, that would help me. And they were nice. I mean, there was like, well, however long it needs to take. It was kind of up to me. It was open-ended. And so I was like, okay, that's good. And so I don't know. I just wrestled with it, and I was like, I just didn't know. I was like, what am I supposed to be doing? But I knew eventually that I just couldn't stay there any longer. I mean, there was so much, obviously, that I didn't agree with where they were headed doctrinally at that point, because they were shifting back to what they thought was their original doctrine, which we found out later it's not. But so I don't agree with that. I didn't agree with the decision that was made, and but I still was like, I need a paycheck, because you're not working at this point.
Yeah, because I don't even know if we'd mentioned it, but like on our way back from that interview that we went on in beginning of December, I found out that I was getting like fired from my job.
So that's what was another thing, was like, what is happening right now?
It was super weird. And, I had to wrestle through like all of that kind of hurt and confusion and frustration as well. And then a month later, this even more hurt and confusion and frustration. But I think you wanted to help. You were always wanting to be honoring, even though...
Yeah, I mean, that was a big thing, was I can disagree with them. They can speak ill of you and me behind closed doors and all that stuff that happened. I can still honor them on the way out the best that I can. And so that was my thing. I was like, I will help you transition to whatever that looks like. If you hire another person, let me help them with the transition. Because that's kind of been the first church I ever worked at. That's how it worked. It was like, I knew I was leaving. They hired somebody, and I transitioned with them for a month. It was a healthy thing. And so I was like, trying to set them up. I was teaching other staff members how to do stuff, showing them everything that I did, because it was more than just what you saw on Sunday mornings. There was so much more to it. So I was teaching them all the back end stuff, all this stuff that I was responsible for. So I was like, well, I can't just bail on them. I was like, I'm not going to be that guy. You couldn't
just like leave this void.
No, because I'm not that type of person. Regardless of how hurt I was and how I felt, I was like, that's just not who I am. But then we came to a point where I was just like, you and I think had that conversation in the backyard. I was just like, I can't stay any longer. I just can't. Like,
because at that point you had kind of made a decision that you were going to stay at least until either we got an offer on the house, and or like job offer, and we had multiple showings, like more than multiple. We had many showings,
especially
at that point.
Up front. Yeah.
Yes, we had a lot of showings up front. We even had an open house and more showings, and nothing. We still to this day have not gotten a single offer.
Yeah.
So you got to the point where you kind of broke down and were just like, I don't have peace. Like you were like, I'm kind of miserable.
Yeah, I was miserable. Well, it's just because. And I think I said this in the other one, and if I didn't, I've been sharing this with a lot of people that ask me how things were after the transition happened, like when a lot of people left. Spiritually speaking, it was hard for me because it was dead. I mean, it was just dead.
Yeah.
Like it was hard for me to be there. And even though I was only on the platform like a couple more times when I especially made the announcement that I was leaving, I went into the booth, and even being in the booth, I was like, oh my gosh, like kind of like what Kendall said in this last episode. I was like, can this hurry up? I need this to be over. I want to go home.
Yeah.
And that's not a good place to be in anything. And so it just was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. But you and I, we're like, we need to make sure that it's just, I don't want to give into my flesh. And so we're like, we need to get out of this town.
Yeah.
To see if there's some spiritual stuff that's going on that we can just be out of. And so we went down and stayed with some friends on their land in their little RV down southern Oklahoma. And like, I think it was the first night we were even there, right? Like, I felt like...
I think so,
It was like the first night we were there. We hung out at the fire pit, just talked, kind of shared.
Either that night or the next night. I don't remember.
I can't remember. But man, it was just like, I laid in bed that night going, yep. I was all the confirmation and like...
like you learned some more things.
Yeah, I learned some more stuff that was not good. And then I just felt like, yeah, that's confirmation. Like, I'm done. But I was like, okay, God, the house needs to sell. Like, I still need another job. Like, I'm still wrestling that.
But also, before we went...
Oh, yeah.
Before you made the decision, kind of got that confirmation, and you were wrestling... I want to even say before we had that conversation in the backyard where you told me, where you just broke and were like, I'm miserable.
Yeah.
I want to say before even then, we were with some friends of ours, and at the end of the night, we were blessed by them with like a very large, significant amount of money.
Yeah.
And I, since the Lord was just like, this is me showing you, like, you can trust me. Because I felt like he was already speaking that to me.
Yeah.
Earlier on, even, of like, about just some specific things for the kind of like upcoming future. And one of which he was like, your faith will be tested, in this area. Like, once again, to where I am your provider.
Yeah.
And like almost like watch me rise up and gather the saints, gather my church to also rise up and show you like how to take care of one another.
Yeah.
And then, weeks later, maybe, I don't even know how long later, we were with our friends and we got that.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just like would share that with you every once in a while. Like, well, remember, like whenever you were stressing out, trying to figure out what to do, I would just like, well, remember, like the Lord has already showed us, like he already did it once. I fully believe he can do it again, you know? And so sure enough, after you made the decision. And
then I went to them. I mean, I put in my resignation letter, like, and so then I gave them a couple days to get it, and then I made the announcement just on Facebook, and it was like, you know, as everybody knows, especially if you're part of the church, you know what just happened. And then I was like, let me answer a couple questions, like, do I have another job? No. Has the house sold? No. What are we going to do for money? I don't know. Like, trust the Lord, like that type of thing. And I think that it was right after, not too long after that, like some other people from the ones that had left, like, stopped by and gave us money. And then one day we came home, and I just happened to check the mail, and it was like an envelope full of money. And I was just like, so it was, for me, I don't know. I just kept getting like, okay, like, I get it. Like, you're going to take care of us.
Yeah. Because I mean, ultimately the best way to describe the decision that you made was you got to this crossroads of, are you going to choose the word of the Lord in faith, or are you going to choose like your own will and emotions and like strength in fear? You know, fear of the unknown, fear of like not being able to provide for your family, and who knows what all could happen leaving this job that you had a secure paycheck that you could count on, but where the Lord is saying like, nope, you are done. Yeah. Even though I don't have something for you right now, like I am for you, you know, kind of thing. And so it's choosing faith and trust in the Lord's word over that fear of the unknown.
It also came down to, I really had to wrestle with the integrity side of it too. I could have stayed and just milked it, because obviously we don't have an offer either way. I don't have a job offer right now yet. I don't have an offer in the house, and here we are just shy of 3 months of not being there. And like, I could have, we'd be way okay right now. But I was like, knowing what I know that went on behind the scenes, knowing what I know about just the spiritual aspect of a few things that was going on, leading up to all that, I got convicted like big time, because it was like, Jared, are you going to stay and take this money, or are you going to trust me? And it was like, I can't in good conscience stay any longer and have to stand before the Lord and be like, I'm sorry I didn't trust you. I needed to take this money, you know, instead of believing it. So that was a huge thing that weighed on me too. You know, when you talk to people about it though, they're like, it's irresponsible. You know, I think my parents right away, like, do you have another job? Yeah, it's like, we don't operate like that. You should know that by now. But
for all the times that we've showed up at your doorstep. Well,
he gets it. I mean, he gets it now. Obviously, all the stuff that God's been doing for us, I share with him, and he's like, yeah, okay. But yeah, I mean, I think you can get too legalistic about the role of the husband being the head of the household when it comes to providing for the family, when the Lord is telling you to do something in faith and you don't do it,
you're
being disobedient.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what it looks like to people outside, like, oh, Jared's not providing for his family. It's like, no, the Lord is, because I'm being faithful to what he asked me to do. So that's where I rest in that. Did it suck? Yeah. It's been like difficult to have some conversations with people who don't get that.
Yeah. But, you saying that, like, the questioning, like, oh, look, Jared's not even providing for his family. But you were providing actually more, because you were providing the standard of which we are to, like, rely on the Lord.
Yeah.
Before even Matthew knows anything, but we're able to, like, now that we've kind of lived in this and stepped into it, like, whenever Matthew gets to a certain age to where he kind of gets to maybe a situation to where he has to choose what to man may seem illogical, but what God is, like, saying, this is logical, because for my kingdom, like, for God to have the glory, we can share this with him. We can be like, Bud, whenever you were 3,
or can you remember when Mama and Dada were home all the time?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
for a couple months.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, because we had to choose, like, to trust the Lord, versus who knows the alternative,
I mean, I'm just thinking how miserable would I have been if I had to stay for another 3 months.
That's very true. Like, it could have.
I shared in that towards the end of that last episode, that episode that we're kind of continuing, is my headaches were starting. Like, I was getting spiritually attacked for sure.
For sure.
The oppression and stuff like that. So it's like, I can't imagine having to stay in that. But yeah, I mean, we're still wrestling with it. Obviously, my flesh was still not okay. Like,
yeah, for a long time, I want to say up until this last time that you prayed over me, which will kind of I want to share that, but we have really wrestled with still having faith, like, Lord, you got to show up, like, you know, because as we see, even though people have been giving to us, and we've been given opportunities to guest lead, and, we've had some provision that way as well. Still, what we've had in our bank accounts is, like, dwindling.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's like our bills and our spending, as diligent as we're trying to be with our spending, like, it's all going out more than what is, like, coming in. Yeah. And so, just to kind of, like, actually backstory, like, testimony really quick.
Well, which has allowed us to live for 3 months.
Yes.
A big chunk of it.
Yes, a big chunk of it. A year ago, I got a random phone call from my bank.
Well, what's weird now that I think about it is they called you a couple of times and you were like, why do they keep calling me? They're like, we need to speak to you about something. And then you finally got a hold of them.
I was finally able to, with USAA, and finally got back, and she just essentially told me that, are you the card holder for XYZ? And I was like, yes, I think so. It was like a credit card, the only credit card that I had ever gotten in my entire life.
Yeah, it's the only credit card that's singly in your name too.
Yes, exactly, because I had only ever got it. Yeah, and it was before we got married to help kind of pay for stuff for that. And
I forgot you got to help pay for the wedding stuff.
Yeah.
Dang, the Lord provides 10 years later. Sorry. Before we ruin it, go ahead.
I know, I didn't even think about that. Like, yeah, because we were so stressed out. We got super stressed out about the wedding stuff. And yeah, I used some of it for the wedding stuff and just to pseudo, like, live off of in a way. And we were given a bunch of, like, a lot of people helped paid for stuff. And we had, like, the cheapest wedding ever. Because we're like, we just want to get married. Yeah. But
anyways, go back to
anyways. And so, 10 years later, like.
Well, 9 years, but now 10 years, it's paying off.
Yes, exactly. So, anyways, she essentially told me, like, well, just wanted you to know, like, and then explained why.
Settlement. Yeah. It was
I don't remember.
It was something to do with, like,
I overpaid an interest or something like that.
For, like,
the whole time for 9 years.
Almost 9 years.
Yeah. Well, I essentially got a large amount of money back for it. Yeah. And sure enough, like, a few days later in the mail, the check came. And so we like forever was like, what are we supposed to do with this? So yeah, I mean, so majority of it went into savings and has been in savings. And then, you know, with what I brought in and what he brought in, like, you know, so that has, like he said, covered us.
Yeah, that was the majority of what was in our savings. And then obviously we were given money before I even quit. So that went in there. And then the money that we were getting from other people, it went straight in there. So that's how we've sustained for 3 months now, with the Lord continuing to give us things like that.
Yeah, because even whenever we got it, I asked the Lord, I'm like, what are we supposed to do with it? And I just, like, we just got a couple of things that we needed. But then I just felt, we just put it in savings and just wait until the Lord.
Yeah, because you were wrestling, like, do I start a business with it?
Yeah.
Like, what are we supposed to do with it?
Like
so it literally had just sat in there for a year. It was making interest, which was nice.
Yeah, but we really just never got clarity. And clearly this is why. Yeah. Like, the Lord knew this was going to happen. So,
but it's still, I will say, like, and I had a conversation with a good friend of ours the other day about it. It was like, that first couple of weeks, not being employed, I was like stressed to the max. I was like, how's this gonna work? Because to be completely honest with everybody, people stopped helping us, like, as far as like giving of abundance. It was like, as soon as, actually, when I was actually done, we haven't gotten anything from like that since then. It's just that. It was like right before I quit, and then like once I quit, nobody gave anymore, which is fine. And that's,
this is not us saying, like,
we're not telling you to
please
give us money.
Give more because
God is providing. Yes, but it's just interesting that, like, that, because in my mind I was like, okay, I quit. God's going to continue to do this with people. And then it was like, it stopped, and I was like, okay, God. Yeah, like, you were like, because I knew like how quick that substantial amount of money in our savings was going to go. Yeah. And so, like, I was talking to our good friend of ours about that. I was like, dude, that first couple of weeks, I was looking at our bank account every day, and I was like seeing it just drop and drop. And I was like, I was basically killing myself, you know? And so I just had to, like, eventually stop and just be like, there's nothing I can do to change this. And I've tried. Like, we're talking about, you know, the people that gave, they stopped, and then, we had that money in there, so it was like, okay, but then it was like, we're getting guest leading opportunities, but I want people to understand, like, that is essentially, I want to say 15% of like what I was actually making a month. So if that puts people in perspective of how much less I'm making at that point. Yeah. Like, it's helpful and it's been great.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's like, it's not a substantial amount of money. Yeah. And so, as I'm looking at the bank account and I'm seeing, and I'm doing the math in my head, I'm like, okay, I know that we're going to make it for like 3 months. And here we are, 3 months. It's like about to be gone. And then, but I had to like just stop, because I was telling our friend, I was like, dude, it was just eating me up. I was getting stressed. I'm pretty sure I was depressed for a little bit, like a couple weeks there for a little bit. I just have never experienced this. I didn't know what that was. Like, there were days where, like, you know, when you were like, you didn't get out of bed until 11. It's just like, I had nothing. Like, I had no motivation. Yeah. You know, if anybody's seen that movie Unsung Hero, for King and Country guys, like, I related with their dad. It's just sitting there like feeling like a failure I had no purpose. Yeah. And I felt like I was letting you and Matthew down. But I was like, God, I've done everything you've asked me to do. And I've even tried to, in my own power, make money. And he still wouldn't let me do it. Yeah. I have applied to the most dumb jobs that I'm well overqualified for. And we talked about a little bit of it, but even more since then. I've applied to all these jobs, like part-time jobs and stuff, and nothing. And I'm like, God, what are you wanting from me? Like, so I wrestled with that for a while, and then it was just kind of like, God was like, stop. Yeah. Just stop. And you need to understand, like, it was kind of like this 3-month period for us, as at least for me, has just been a place of like abiding in him and finding true rest and assurance. Because like my old self right now, seeing our bank account, that it wouldn't cover everything this month. Like, I know that, but I know what's about to happen. So it's like, I would be freaked out right now. Like,
Yeah.
I'd be stressed in the max. You guys, we would probably be fighting, I'm sure,
Yeah.
because I just would be in my flesh.
Yeah.
But I just feel like he's just taught me to just be like, let it go.
Yeah.
You have to. And so that's where I've kind of come to this point. And I was like, same friend that I was talking to about it, he's been in the same predicament we are. He hasn't worked since April, and he was like, I had to get to a point where I was like, every day now, this is what he's telling me. He was like, every day now, I'm thanking God for what I have that day, that I'm able to be provided for that day. Because he said, if I have to think about a week in advance, he's like, I would go insane. I can't think about that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no, that's
good.
really good to think about. Like so since he and I talked, that was when you were just gone this past weekend. So I was like talking to him about it. So since then, I've just been like, if I don't remember to do it in the morning, I'm laying in bed, go to sleep. It's kind of now I'm maybe doing the Jewish calendar, like doing my days and nights opposite, I guess.
Yes.
I just didn't know about it.
You always start and end of the day.
Yeah. So at night now, I'm laying in bed, and I've been reading that Raise to Stay book, and so I'll read a chapter of that. I'll read a little bit of. I don't even know what I'm in right now. I think I've been in Galatians. And then I just lay there, and I don't talk. I just kind of just think about the day, and then I'm just like, Lord, thank you that we got to eat today. Thank you that we have a roof over our heads. And when I've been praying with Maddie in bed, I just start every prayer with like, Yahweh, thank you for everything that you continue to give us. I said, thank you for the food that we get to eat.
Yeah.
The roof over our heads. And I was like, I know we don't have jobs, but you are providing financially. And so I'm like, it's a mindset that I've had to change, which for me, I think wherever we land now, because it's going to be at this point, just what I'm basing on in the churches, it's going to be a significant more amount of money that I'll be making because it's not in Oklahoma. And so I think for me, it's teaching me now to be even more aware of the resources that he's giving us, to not just hoard it, but to look for opportunities. Because I remember when you and I first got married, and I would see like these stories on the news, like this couple got taken advantage of, and they need a wheelchair, like this mobilized wheelchair. And I remember saying like, that's why I want money. Like because I would call the news guy, how much does she need? That's just who I am, but I don't have any to give. And I never do. And so now I'm thinking like about that type of stuff. It's like, God, you just provided for us for the last 3 months via people.
Yeah.
How can we turn around and do that again when we're in a place that we can do that for?
Yeah.
So it's like, that's that's how church, the ecclesia should be, is we take care of each other. Whatever the need has, we all pull our resources together and do that. And there's probably going to come a time, I would think probably in our lifetime, that it's going to be a barter system within believers, and you're making bread, so we can be like, who wants some bread? That type of thing.
I know. I'm waiting for the Lord to say, okay, stock up now on grains. And get ready, because you're gonna be making bread out your nose for everybody.
So I just wanted to clarify, like with the whole part-time job situation. It's like, I've been applying, and I'm even had phone interviews. Yeah. And then they're like, all right, we'll let you know, and then I don't hear from them. Yeah. And I follow up, and they're like, oh, we've already went with these other 2 people or whatever. Yeah. So then I started thinking about it. It was like, well, God, maybe you don't want me to work because we're about to leave. Like, it's not fair to that business or whoever I might work for them to train me, and then I turn around, and especially right now, like we're about to leave for 2 weeks to go to 2 different churches. Interviews on site in their facility. And it's like, I'd have to turn around like, thanks for hiring me, but I will be back in 2.5 weeks. Like, you know, it's like, it's just not fair to them.
Well, yeah, because we're intentionally pursuing
our full ministry.
Full-time jobs that all of them so far, except now maybe one, are outside of the state of Oklahoma. Yeah.
So it's like, it's just not fair. And so it's a catch-22. It's like, we need money and I need a job, but at the same time, like, I can't go. I mean, I couldn't lie to the guy at Love's. I went and applied to Love's. He's like, why do you want to work here? Well, I need money right now, and I don't know what I'm doing with my life in the moment. So, and he was like, yeah, okay, Yes. So it's just like, so I'm not going to lie in my interviews and be like, so how long do you see yourself here? not that long, you know, like they're not going to hire me. So, so that's just, I want people to know, like, I'm not just being lazy. I'm not, you know, not intentionally trying not to work. It's just, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. And whenever you have tried, God has closed the door.
Yeah,
I think to like remind you, like, no.
Yeah, I'm your provider.
I am your provider.
So, continuing on with, let's be honest with everybody. Like, our bank account right now, we have two different banks. We have USAA and Communication Federal.
Yeah.
Both of those bank accounts, we don't have enough in either one of them to cover everything for the month of, what are we in? June. Mm-hmm. Like, we have enough to cover our mortgage. That's it. And then some like utilities. No, which is not a lot. Because we bought our house before the interest rates went sky high. And so we've had this 2021 Nissan Rogue that we bought in 2021.
Yeah.
When I was at Ideal Homes. Mm-hmm. We had a Volkswagen Jetta. And so this was 2021, if anyone remembers. It's when they were overpaying for used cars.
Yeah.
So like we traded our 2019 Volkswagen Jetta, and they gave us, I think, $6,000 more than what we actually paid for the car. Brand new. We drove the car off the lot.
Yeah.
In Virginia. Yeah. Brand new.
Yeah.
And they gave us as a trade $6,000 more than what we paid for it brand new.
Okay.
So that's how people, like, I want to have people understand, like, why did you get a new car? It's like, well, we had equity in that car.
Yeah.
Which is never happens.
Yeah.
And then we got a pretty good deal on the Rogue. And then it came a point where it's been like a thorn in our side. Like, we were upside down on it. You know, eventually that's what happens when you buy brand new cars. And it was a significant car payment every month, and the insurance on that thing was stupid high. We had started praying, God, all these hailstorms that were coming through where we lived. It was like, God, it was twofold. It was like, please destroy our car and please destroy the house. Like, you know, we need a new roof. Like, it was like that thing. And man, every freaking time it would hailstorm in El Reno, it literally was like, oh, Hoff Avenue, no thanks. Like, go around us.
Around it. No.
And so I was like, are you kidding me? And so a couple weeks ago, we had almost back-to-back wild storms. Like, we had a major hailstorm. We ended up having tornadoes.
We did have back-to-back. So we had the hailstorm. And
it was tornadoes
that
too.
Night. Yeah, tornadoes. And then the next morning.
The next morning it was. That's right. It was crazy. No, I had already put the claim in. And then,
so the night in the morning we were good, and then that
the next
following morning.
Yeah, because when the insurance adjuster showed up, I go, oh, by the way, I was like, there was another hailstorm yesterday morning.
Yes.
And it's even worse.
Yeah.
And he looked at it, he's like, oh my gosh, like it was so much damage. And so I was like, oh, finally. Like, and so I was thinking, if we can just be awash.
Yeah.
Great. We can be out from underneath that car. We can go buy a $1,500 car, whatever we need to do to survive. And so, he runs his report, he sends it off, and USAA is like, we're going to total the car. And I'm like, sweet. And then we get the number, and it's like almost $6,000 more than what we owe on the car.
Yes.
So I was like, all right, God, there's 6,000, almost 6,000. So
to live off of.
I'm like, all right, now we'll make it another couple months. So,
and we, the night before, we had a heart-to-heart where we just were both really, opened up to each other about how much we were really struggling with our faith. Mm-hmm. We were just you honestly were like, if we get bad news on this, I'm gonna snap.
Yeah, it was
bad. Very, very much struggling. Because it almost felt like for a little bit there was because you would have hope for this one job, one church position, and it was the door would close.
Yeah.
And it was another church position that we were kind of getting excited about, and the door would close.
Yeah.
And so it was just one thing after another.
Yeah. So I was trying not to get my hopes up.
Yes, and so we were just please, Lord, please pay off this car.
Just pay off the car. We didn't ask for anything extra.
No, and he's like, watch this.
Yeah. So it's been great.
So that was just another little thing where we also invited Matthew into teaching Matthew how we go about praying and believing for things, but also being very thankful. Mm-hmm. Tonight even I was just but you said when you're praying with him, and then praying for food, even like whenever we sit down at the table, trying to remind him, like when he doesn't really want to pray, we're like, well, buddy, Jesus has given us everything.
Yeah.
He has given us this food, like, you know, our house, our clothes, like everything. Like the least we can do is thank him for it.
Yeah.
And so just kind of like trying to instill that in him now, you know, but he's even already had moments of that before then. I was just remember he like really wanted to play keepy uppy, but he busted his balloon.
Oh yeah.
And
the Lord blew a balloon into the yard.
Yes, we were like not even, I don't know, maybe a day later or whatever, but he'd just been asking. He was like, Mom, where's the balloon? I'm like, I'm sorry, buddy, like, but you popped it. Like, we told you can't squeeze it. And we were outside and the wind like just blows and suddenly there's a balloon blown into our front yard. And I'm like, Bud, look, Jesus brought you a balloon.
Yeah.
And so he knew, he was like, it's my Jesus balloon.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, now we can play keepy uppy like that. And I feel like there was something else I can't remember, but it's those little moments where it's like showing him like, you know, the desires of his heart.
Yeah.
It's that scripture, you know, in Matthew 7, verse, I'm going to start with 8. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened. Or which of you, if a son asks him for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, being able to instill that scripture in a tangible way this at such a young age.
Yeah.
And reminders for us, too.
Oh, yeah,
like,
for sure.
I love seeing those little gifts from God, like, for Matthew like that.
Yeah.
Like, that really spoke to me even.
Yeah. So I think it's just, you know, it's been a wild 3 months, like, of God. I mean, it's literally the only way we have survived is the goodness of God. Like, there's no other way to explain it. I don't have a job. You don't have a job.
Yeah.
There's not like it's not like, you know, the band is paying residual, like, royalties for songs on the radio. It's like, if that is, I get like $5 here and there, like, you know, every quarter or something. So like, we have nothing. Our parents aren't helping us. Like, and you know, it's like nobody since, like we'd said, like since kind of two or 3 weeks in of me not being at the church anymore. It's like people have stopped, and we're not, you know, like we said earlier, it's like, we're not saying that to have a pity party.
No, I mean, we're absolutely thankful for every single person
that gave,
that has gotten to be a part of this.
Yeah. But for me, it's been awesome, just the testimony of the Lord to be like, how are you guys? Even the interviews that I have, like, what are you guys doing for money? I said, well, you know, God's providing all this. They're like, this is awesome. So it's been really cool to kind of we get to continue to share that testimony with people that we come across, or our friends that check in on us, like what's going on. And
yeah, I mean, I'm always saying, like, the Lord wants to have the glory.
Oh, for sure.
And like, I'm thankful that he's not letting us take any of the glory for ourselves.
No, there's no way we can.
Exactly. Like, you know, if we somehow had gotten jobs, but then it's like, well, I got, you know, I'm qualified for this and that, and I got the job or whatever. Yeah. But like, shoot, right after you were like, you stopped, I went ahead and, because I had a connection with somebody at a restaurant in town or a town over, and I went ahead and like interviewed and completely bombed it for a job that I had already been doing.
Big time.
But I just was a mess, like emotionally. I mean, she asked me the question, tell me about yourself, who are you? And I was like having this identity crisis already with coming out of what we had just dealt with. Like, it was the wound was still like a little open, you know, a little soft. And I was just like, I don't know, like, I'm a mom. And and so I was just like, but I knew the next day I went ahead and called her back and was like, thank you again. I'm sorry. Like, I don't usually cry this much, but that's not true, apparently. Not in a professional, not in a professional manner like that. Like, I'm not crying whenever I'm working like that. But I had just made that realization, like, you know, you shared, like, it would not be, I was like, honestly, our house is on the market. We're interviewing at places that are out of state at this point. It would not be fair to you for you to train me, and then you'd have to turn around and just do it all over again once I left. And we'd have to ask to not work on weekends because we're going out of town to guest lead. It just didn't make sense, you know? And so I was like, clearly I was supposed to bomb that. So the Lord wants his glory.
And he's getting it. Because there's no other explanation of how we have survived so far with no jobs. And it's different. Like, you know, we've had transition periods before, and they haven't been like this. This is way more intense than anything. So I don't know. It's
there's been an interesting level of spiritual warfare to this season, to this transition in particular, and I don't really know what that's about entirely. I mean, aside from the fact that we knew we were having spiritual warfare while we were in the midst of everything in the previous church. And it just has kind of like still carried over as we have been trying to transition away. Still in this town. Like, we know that there's dark principalities and rulers in this town, and that praying for deliverance for that and everything. But you know, so that's something that I mentioned earlier that I wanted to kind of share, which I think we shared a little bit, that there were a few times after like we left the church that I dealt with, like, you said that you dealt with severe depression. I was coming under attack with depression, but also straight up like getting attacked in my mind with images and thoughts of like suicide. And had not, I want to even say, whenever I like dealt with that spirit of depression whenever I was a teenager, it wasn't even the same as it was when I dealt with it now as an adult. Like, it was different. Like, then I was like just depressed about circumstances, like all this stuff, like I was crying out for God to take my life. Whereas this, I was just having constant images of all these different scenarios involving suicide. And just these evil like voices like saying all these things, like just run away, like leave it all behind, like including you and Matthew, which is something I obviously would absolutely never do. But I was just, it was tormenting, and I was sick of it. And there was a couple of times of dealing with it, the Lord helped me overcome it. But this last one was the most intense ever. And I could not get out of it. And I just know, thinking about it earlier, I realized it doesn't surprise me that it happened when I came back from visiting my sister at Jesus Image.
That's right. You were surrounded.
I was
by like everybody's hunger and zeal for the Lord.
Man, and I came back with this. I was refreshed. I was revived, like in my longing for Jesus. And it was so good. Like, just that short amount of time that we were there. And also, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about this. And the whole time that we were there, like, we got the opportunity to talk to my brother about Jesus for the first time. And like being able to just have these conversations where he could ask questions and, you know, and be able to hear like our own personal stories and testimonies and how we came to like know and believe in Jesus and everything, and the foundation of our faith. And then I come back here and I'm good for a few days. I feel like I'm still kind of like living off of the high of like that whole environment.
That's like the conference, like
a little bit,
when you were a kid. Like for me, like when I was going to Acquire the Fire, you're like pumped up, and it's like 3 days later, you're like, wah, wah.
Right, exactly. But I knew that I had been changed, you know, like, you know, what we talked about with Kendall, like, let's wait till tomorrow to see if I'm
Oh,
I've
if
changed.
you've
Yeah,
changed,
exactly.
yeah.
And it's like, I knew there was a change. I knew that there was a shift. There was a call from the Lord to have more discipline, to go deeper with him and to seek Jesus. And of course, whenever I come back, a few days later, I want to say that you said something, and it's not obviously not on you, but it was like the situation that we were in, something about it. I stepped into fear, like, and chose to just agree with that fear and that lie and that hopelessness. And looking back now, can see that moment of, instead of like just submitting to the Lord, those emotions that I felt, those, of fear and doubt and worry, and just submitting it to the Lord and praising him through it and praying through it. Instead of doing that, I dwelled on it. I immediately started thinking about, what can I do for that to not happen, which it was running out of money.
Oh, yeah. I remember. I had finally told you.
You were like, we have maybe enough money in the bank, we have enough money in the bank for maybe a month left. And at this point, we didn't have definite jobs, obviously the house isn't selling. And I was just like, I was struck with fear, and I just shut down. And I can see how that was even like the door that opened, that allowed that attack, allowed that entryway. It was just out of my agreement with that spirit of fear. Yeah. And like with that lie, it's that Eve in the garden moment. Of like, we have those moments. We can have those moments every single day. And it's like, you choose, either if you choose to believe the lie over the truth of who God says he is and who you are, then that is immediate access for demonic influence. Yep. So it got really, really bad. Like, so bad that I came downstairs, I was just lethargic all day that next day, and just really, really depressed, and just fighting these thoughts. And then finally they got loud. Like the visions and the voices just got loud to where I just was weeping and like telling it to go away. And it seemed like even almost whenever I was telling it to go away, it intensified until finally you came downstairs and was just like, what can I do for you? And I was like, I need you to pray. I need you to take authority over this because what I'm doing is not working. And you did. You laid hands on me. You prayed and took authority. And I remember at one point, like, whenever you first were commanding it to leave, like that demonic oppression to leave, I, like, in my mind, that same voice that was telling me to do this, and that, I literally heard it scream no, like in anger. Yeah. Like, and then it finally just all ceased. Like, and peace came, and even joy came. Like, I got to like laugh about something right after, you know, and it was just, and it's been great since. Yep. And like, but being able to process it like this, and see the access point for it, see, maybe even why I was attacked like that because of what I had just like experienced at Jesus Image, the level of witnessing that we did. I mean, and I know that even my mom experienced spiritual warfare when she got back too. Oh yeah. I know that. In her household. That. And, and it's just like, it's intense and it's frustrating at the same time, but it's also like, Lord, you have the final say. Like, you have the ultimate authority and you've given us the power. But I also love that he did not let me overcome it by myself. He showed us, like, I feel like that is just so much of a testimony of how the Lord wants to work in relationship.
Yeah.
Not just us with him, but us together with him.
Yeah.
And to show the power and the value in being vulnerable with one another. Like, it wasn't easy for me to, like, just show you what was going on with me. Like, I was broken in that moment.
Yeah.
You know, and then just to ask for help finally. And so
I think it's kind of, you know, you and I talk about almost every day, like, reminding ourselves why we wanted to start this podcast. And just to remind, like, to know everybody, had nothing to do with the church that we were recently at. We were already planning.
Absolutely, yeah. No.
Like, we were already planning because I love listening to podcasts, as do you. Mm-hmm. And so we started to notice this trend of just kind of all this negative, and a lot of it was from believers. They were just focusing on all this stuff, but they would never turn the page and be like, but here's what God's doing, or here's what God says about that. Mm-hmm. It was just kind of focusing on, like, here's all the garbage. Mm-hmm. What are we supposed to do?
Yeah. They just like leave it hanging.
And they would just kind of leave you hanging, and you're like, ooh. So we were like, we have to be aware and be vulnerable with it and be raw and honest. That's why it's like real talk. It's Christianity, but it's real talk. Mm-hmm. Like, we do struggle. I mean, it hasn't been the easiest 3 months. I can tell you that. Like,
no,
it's been rough, but we can sit here now and go, look what God has done in these 3 months. Like, my faith is so, like, full right now that I don't even look at the bank account. I've been checking it lately because I thought that USAA was going to direct deposit what is it. Found out they're sending us a check, which is old school. But so I was like, but prior to that, I just stopped looking because I was like, I don't care. Like, it's nothing I can do. Mm-hmm. It's on you, Lord. You told me to do this. I obeyed. Mm-hmm. You have to come through.
And you also had to stop looking at even just part-time jobs.
Yeah, I had to stop looking at actual church jobs because it was so overwhelming.
Yeah,
that became like
we have some in a basket.
Yeah,
to where it's like, okay, now stop.
That became a full-time job in itself for a while.
Yeah.
And so I just was like, you got to stop. But I think, you know, through all this process with the way he's handled us financially, the way that we've been dealing with spiritual warfare and the whole thing, the way that we've just grown just in this 3 months spiritually. I don't know, like, obviously in a year from now when we're living wherever God is, wherever we're going to be living, we're going to be
planted,
we're going to be we'll be able to look back and go, oh yeah, I remember that. That's what he was doing. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's what's funny. But in the moment,
that's what we've done with
every time. Yeah. But like right now, I'm like, you know, we talked to Kendall on our last one, and it was like that reminder that he said, don't think about, oh, I just want to get, and I had said, yeah, I'm just ready to go.
Let me just get through this.
Yeah. That's kind of how I've been living. Like, God, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to, and it's like, obviously we're not ready yet. Mm-hmm. And obviously we're about to go and be on site at a couple places, and, you know, it's up to the Lord at this point. But yeah, I don't know. I just was reminded when he was saying that, like, man, I have lived a big chunk of my life like that. Like, you know, and, you know, you asked me if I'd struggled, like, because I was so used to touring. Mm-hmm. I've been so used to just being on the go all the time. So it's like, and if you look at my resume, it's like, man, you move a lot. Like, and people are like, is it because you miss being able to travel? And I think it's because my mindset's always like, what's next, God? What's next? Yeah. Instead of like, what are you wanting to do now?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I just wanted to read, because this is a good reminder of what was it, Matthew? Matthew 6. Yeah, Matthew 6, 25 through 34. This like perfectly sums up our 3 months. Like, it's just, do not be anxious, you know. So therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And which of you, by being anxious can add a single hour to your lifespan. And why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? Therefore, do not be anxious, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For the Gentiles seek after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them all. But here's the kicker. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. And like,
glory.
Yeah. We changed our mindset to seek first the kingdom.
First the kingdom.
And what has happened? We're given stuff.
Yeah.
Like we have not gone without in 3 months.
Mm-hmm. And we hope and pray that any time that we come on here and we share, whether it's stuff that we share or whether a guest that we bring on shares, is that it encourages, it inspires, maybe even sometimes convicts.
Yeah.
You know, everybody that listens, because ultimately our heart is for everyone to surrender and to seek Jesus.
Yep.
Because this life is so much more exciting
Yeah.
and so much better. And obviously there's wrestling, but not without hope.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever we surrender to Jesus,
Yeah.
whenever we fully believe, whenever he said he is the way and the truth and the life,
Yeah.
that no one can enter into heaven, no one can go to the Father except through him.
Yep.
Not all these other religions.
Yeah.
You can't, yeah. So that's for another day.
Yeah.
But
Well,
we
that's
hope
another
and
episode.
pray that you've been encouraged. And please, please share this.
Yeah.
Repost it, to your social media pages, or send it to friends and family that you feel like this would, encourage them or help them. And also, if you have feedback, if you have, any stories or testimonies that you would like to share, like if you have a story that you just know God is saying, give me the glory, and like share it with others, whether, you want to say who you are, or if you want to be anonymous, please, we would love to have you. We would love to talk with you and give you this space to share the testimony of the Lord in your life. Just email us, text us, message us, whatever, let us know.
And then, if you're still listening, be in prayer for us as we're about to embark on possible landing spots.
Yeah.
We have 2 different churches that we for sure are going to in the next couple of weeks.
And potentially a third one.
Potentially a third
interview
one
this week.
Yeah, so we just ultimately want to go where the Lord wants us to go and be planted there. But and we have some more guests lined up. With it being Pride Month, we're about to have an awesome testimony of someone being completely set free of that lifestyle, and so I'm excited for that. That's going to be coming soon. And then we'll have we're going to do some while we're on the road, so that'll be fun. So they may just be audio like this, or if we can friend good lighting, or we don't have a 3-year-old running around us, then we'll have some video. But we appreciate it. And we just thank you so much for listening. And thank you so much for the feedback. Just even in person when you see us, or text messages and stuff. It means a lot. That you're saying good things, like being encouraged by it, and you're learning a lot. And just in it, and ultimately getting to know us. So we're just excited.
And please continue praying for this podcast.
Yes, please. Yes.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Bye.